Good morning. Today we're going to be reading through Chapter 1 of our second Sherlock Holmes story, The Sign of the Four. And we're doing this live. We're not just going to be reading the words, though. We're doing this live, so we'll be stopping and talking about interesting vocabulary words or phrases. So if you're watching this with me right now, you can ask questions in the chat. And we'll talk about these things. What does this mean? What does that mean? That's the whole point of doing this video. And if you don't ask questions, I will just stop sometimes and talk about words that I think could be useful to you, or phrases I think you could use. So if you're an advanced learner of English, this is a wonderful way to get better vocabulary and a better understanding of English. And when we're finished with the chapter, we get volunteers who come in and through Discord. Usually there's a link down in the description. I think I forgot that today. And we take volunteers from Discord, and we practice working on our accent. We practice intonation, accentuation, pronunciation. So if you want to improve your accent, reduce your accent, don't go away when the chapter is finished, because that's just when the fun gets started. All right, let's see. Oh, and by the way, anyone, when there is a link to the Discord server, anyone can volunteer. It's just the first two volunteers who volunteer after the video starts. We've already got Pachu. Good morning, Pachu. Pachu is volunteering. And Sarah says good morning. Good morning, Sarah. All right, let's get started with The Sign of the Four. Second Sherlock Holmes story. Sherlock Holmes took his bottle from the corner of the mantelpiece. A mantle... Let me show you what a mantle is. Okay, here's a fireplace. And this shelf, this like table or shelf on the top, that's a mantle or a mantelpiece. Sherlock Holmes took his bottle from the corner of the mantelpiece and his hypodermic syringe from its neat morocco case. A syringe, in case you don't know, that's another word, is... Remember, Sherlock Holmes, in case you don't know this, is a drug addict. He's addicted to, I don't know what it is, morphine, heroin, something like that. This is a syringe, or sometimes it's called a hypodermic needle. Here it's called a hypodermic syringe. So he has a special little case, and then inside of that case is his syringe for his drugs. Sarah says, how do you pronounce hypodermic? Hypo means under or below, and derm means skin. So hypodermic means under the skin, because you take the needle and then you put it under the skin. Hypo, below or under, and derma means skin. Hypodermic, under the skin. The corner of the mantelpiece and his hypodermic syringe. From the neat morocco case, with his long white nervous fingers, he adjusted the delicate needle and rolled back his shirt cuff. Just in case you don't know what a cuff is. Cuff is part of the shirt. See the white part here? There's a cuff. 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 So he rolled back the cuff of his shirt. For some little time his eyes rested thoughtfully upon the sinewy forearm and wrist, all dotted and scarred with innumerable puncture marks. So you have number, right? Numeral, number. And innumerable means you can't count. There are so many of them, you can't count. There were innumerable people at the marketplace. That means the market was filled with people. So many people, you can't count how many. Innumerable. And puncture is when you penetrate something. So if you take a needle and you do this, you're puncturing your skin. Sarah's asking about the word sinewy. Let's define that. I don't think it's a nice term. Lean and muscular. I guess it is. It sounds gross. Tough and firm. Resilient and strong. What was sinewy here? Where did we see that? His sinewy forearm. So fore means front. You know, you have your forehead, you have before. So this is your forearm, is the front part of your arm. And it says his sinewy forearm. So it's pretty muscular. Not very fat. It's tough and firm, resilient and strong. For some time, his eyes rested thoughtfully upon the sinewy forearm and wrist, all dotted with scarred and innumerable puncture marks. Down the tiny piston, pressed down the tiny piston, and sank back into the velvet-lined armchair with a long sigh of satisfaction. 3 times a day, for many months I had witnessed this performance, but custom had not reconciled my mind to it. So this is Watson, who's a doctor, saying that, you know, I saw Holmes do this 3 times a day. And even though I saw him do it all the time, I could never get used to it. It always bothered me. It always disturbed me. On the contrary, from day to day, I had become more irritable at the sight. So he's saying, actually, instead of becoming more used to it, it started making me angrier, more upset. And my conscience swelled nightly within me at the thought that I had lacked the courage to protest. And Watson is beginning to think, oh, you know, I'm a coward. I'm not very brave. I should say something, but I never do. And that was also bothering him, that he never said anything. Again and again I had registered a vow that I should deliver my soul upon the subject, but there was that in the cool, nonchalant air of my companion which made him the last man with whom one would care to take anything approaching to a liberty. So he's saying, every night I promise myself the next day I'm going to say something. But there's just something about being in the room with Holmes that makes it very difficult to say anything. He always takes charge of the room. So it's really hard to confront him or to say anything to him about it. Sarah's asking about the word nonchalant. Nonchalant means acting like you don't care, acting casual, acting like it's nothing big. So what was nonchalant here? I had registered a vow. So he's saying, I made a promise that I should deliver my soul upon the subject, that I will tell him, that I will protest, that I will tell him what I think. So I promised that I will tell him what to think. But there was that in the cool, nonchalant air of my companion. So when you're with Holmes, and the way he does it, he just does it like it's nothing, like it's no big deal. It's nothing serious. I'm just reading it again. Who would care to take anything approaching a liberty. So the way he acted like he didn't care, it would seem inappropriate to bring up the subject. His great powers, his masterly manner, and the experience which I had in his many extraordinary qualities all made me diffident and backward in crossing him. So, because of the way he acted, he's very smart, he knows a lot, he has a very strong presence in the room. It made it very difficult to tell him what to do, even though Watson was a doctor. Yet upon that afternoon, whether it was the bone which I had taken with my lunch, I don't know what that is, bone, Beaune. Let's see. A town in Burgundy, France. A type of wine from the Beaune region. Okay. Sarah's asking about the word diffident. Well, think about the word difference, meaning opposite, something different, something opposite. Diffident is something shy, maybe, or not trusting, or not having faith. How is it used here? Let's just read that last line again. His great powers, his masterly manner, and the experience which I had had of his many extraordinary qualities all made me diffident, all made me shy and backward in crossing him. So Watson starts the day thinking, today's the day I'm going to tell Holmes, stop using those drugs. But then when he's actually in the room with him, suddenly he becomes shy because Holmes has a lot of presence in the room. Yet upon that afternoon, whether it was the bone, which I had taken with my lunch, so that's some kind of wine, or the additional exasperation is another way of saying frustration, produced by the extreme deliberation of his manner, I suddenly felt that I could hold out no longer. So to hold out, that's a phrasal verb. Maybe I'll put that on my list for today. Hold out. Hold out means waiting. So I could wait no longer. I could hold out no longer. Suddenly, he had to say something. Which is it today? I asked. Morphine or cocaine? He raised his eyes languidly. Languid means like tired, I think. Well, let me just check that. Languid. Or lazy, tired, lazy, something like that. Let's see. Weak or lacking energy, relaxed, unhurried. So imagine Watson is very frustrated. What is it today, cocaine or morphine? And then Holmes looks up at him, bored, languidly. He raised his eyes languidly from the old black letter volume which he had opened. It's cocaine, he said. A 7% solution. Would you care to try it? No, indeed, I answered brusquely. Brusquely means shortly. My constitution has not got over the Afghan campaign yet. I cannot afford to throw any extra strain upon it. He smiled at my vehemence, and vehement means like very strong. So a very strong opinion. No, I can't. Not no. But he said no vehemently. No! In a very strong way. He smiled at my vehemence. Perhaps you're right, Watson, he said. I suppose that its influence is physically a bad one. I find it, however, so transcendently stimulating and clarifying to the mind that its secondary action is a matter of small moment. So, what Sherlock Holmes is saying is, yeah, you're right. It's probably bad for my body, but it helps to clear my mind so much that it doesn't really matter to me that it's unhealthy. But consider, I said earnestly, count the cost. Your brain may, as you say, be roused and excited, but it is pathological and morbid process. Pathological means like sick or causing sickness. So Watson says, think about it though. Think about the cost of taking these drugs. Maybe it excites your brain. That's what roused means. But it's pathological. It's something that causes sickness and a morbid process. Morbid means something horrible. I want to define morbid. But morbid usually means something horrible. Related to death or disease. Gruesome or disturbing. Gloomy. Since we're defining words, pathological actually is a very common term because doctors use it all the time. Or when you go to the hospital, you'll see that word all the time. But it doesn't hurt to get the official definition. So Pachu says a morbid process. So this is a process that will cause illness, or it's a sad process, an ugly process, something like that. And pathological means related to disease, abnormal or extreme, indicative of mental or emotional disturbance. Well, Sarah's asking, well, which words are words that you use and which words are just fancy words? Pathological is something that you'll definitely see in school, but also if you have to visit a hospital or something like that, you'll see the word pathology everywhere because they study sickness, or they study the route of the disease. So you'll see that in hospitals or in a school or TV shows. It's definitely... Now, a word like diffident, or what were some of the other words that we saw today that were a little bit funny? Let's see what it... nonchalant. See, words like diffident or sinew, probably not. Those are not words that you see every day. But definitely, pathology is something that you'll see if you're in school or watching TV or you have to go to the hospital. And nonchalant, it's a fairly common... We've done that word before. I'm sure that I have a video, maybe a couple of them, practicing that word. Nonchalant means acting like you don't care. And it's a fairly common word. But consider, I said earnestly, count the cost. Your brain, as you may be roused and excited, but it is a pathological and morbid process. So it's a process that will bring you sickness and will cause problems for you, physical problems. Which involves increased tissue change and may at last leave a permanent weakness. You know, too, what a black reaction comes upon you. So he's saying it's killing you to take these drugs. And also, I don't know what he means by black reaction, but I'm imagining he's saying it also changes your mood. It makes you angry. It makes you unfriendly. But let's see. You know, too, what a black reaction comes upon you. Surely the game is hardly worth the candle. Why should you, for a mere passing pleasure, risk the loss of those great powers with which you'd been endowed? Endowed means given. And Pachu is saying it's helpful to break down the words with the suffix and the root word. Well, Tao I'm pretty sure Tao is related to the Latin word for giving. You have words like donation, endowment, except that's a French word, endowment. I don't think that's Latin, but it comes from Latin, even if it's from French. Let's see. Should we look? Endowment. Now I'm curious, because Pachi is asking about root words and prefixes. Sarah's asking about the game is hardly worth the candle. Is that an expression? It might have been at the time. It's not something that you would say now. I'm not really sure. I mean, I can guess what it means, but I'm just guessing too that whatever you're doing is not worth the result or what you're going to get in result. But it's not something that you would use in contemporary English. Gotta fix my camera. All right, I forgot. Let's see. So the root of endowment, dotare, to provide with a dowry. A dowry is like a wedding gift. To provide with dower, endowment. Yeah, I mean, it has to do with giving and gifts. Remember that I speak not only as one comrade to another, but as a medical man, to one for whose constitution he is to some extent answerable. He did not seem offended. On the contrary, he put his fingertips together and leaned his elbows on the armchair like one who has a relish for conversation. We've seen the word relish before. That means to enjoy something. So instead of being offended, which is what Watson was afraid of. Oh, why does my camera keep going blurry? There we go. So Watson was afraid that when he confronted Holmes about his drug addiction, he would be angry. But actually, Holmes seems interested. He wants to talk more about it. Like he's enjoying the conversation. My mind, he said, rebels at stagnation. Stagnation means not moving. If something is stagnant, it should be moving, but it isn't moving. So, for example, you talk about stagnant water. If you live in a place where, maybe there's not a lot of rain, and then suddenly there is a lot of rain, that water will collect in some areas, but it doesn't move. Water should move. If the water doesn't move, it causes disease. It could cause malaria. It could cause other things. And this is stagnant water, water that doesn't move, but should move. And he's saying my mind stagnates. He says, my mind rebels at stagnation. So when my mind is sitting still, it goes crazy. It hates sitting still. My mind, he said, rebels at stagnation. Give me problems. Give me work. Give me the most abstruse cryptogram or the most intricate analysis. All right. Abstruse, of course, this is not a word that you really need to know or you should use because people won't know what you're talking about. But let's get a definition for abstruse. Difficult to understand. Okay, now we have the word crypto, so speaking of roots or putting words together or the prefixes and suffixes and things like that, that word crypto means hidden or secret. And maybe you recognize that word from cryptocurrency. And the point of cryptocurrency is that the transactions are secret or the source or the destination of the money are secret. And that's why it's called cryptocurrency, because the details of the currency are hidden, supposedly. Cryptocurrency, so crypto means secret or hidden, and currency means money. And then people call it crypto for short. Here, what are they talking about? Cryptogram. So a gram, that would be like some kind of writing, secret writing. But let's take a look at cryptogram. If we Google cryptogram, let's see what kind of things we get. Gram, graph, that always has something to do with pictures or writing. Well, I think gram is more of a picture, and graph, well, I don't know. Well, let's see. See, if you Google cryptogram, you get all of these options for writing secret messages. Let's see. There's even a code. You could write secret messages with ice cream. The crypto part means hidden. But what's the difference between gram and graph? Let's ask ChatGPT. Oh, I didn't really get a very good answer for that. I'm not going to explore it any further either. Graph and gram, they usually have something to do with pictures. Let's just say that. Pachu's saying it's about writing. Yeah, it is about writing or about making pictures. My mind, he said, rebels at stagnation. Give me problems, give me work, give me the most abstruse cryptogram. What does abstruse mean again? I forgot already. Abstruse, difficult to understand, not easily accessible to the average person. Give me the most abstruse cryptogram and the most intricate analysis, and I in my own proper atmosphere. I can dispense then with the artificial stimulants. But I abhor the dull routine of existence. So Holmes says, if you give me a mystery, if you give me a problem to solve, then I don't need any drugs. But if I don't have that, that's a problem. That's why I have to do drugs. I abhor. Abhor means hate. Again, it isn't a very common word. It is something that you could use in contemporary English, abhor, or it's more common to use abhorrent, which is an adjective, which means something that you really hate. So, for example, abhorrent behavior means horrible behavior that anyone would hate. Your behavior at the party was abhorrent. That means I hated your behavior at the party. Everyone hated your behavior at the party. I crave for mental exaltation, and that is why I've chosen my particular profession, or rather created it, for I'm the only one in the world. The only unofficial detective, I said, raising my eyebrows. The only unofficial consulting detective, he answered. I am the last and highest court of appeal in detection. When Gregson or Lestrade or Athelney Jones are out of their depths, which, by the way, is their normal state, the matter is laid before me. Out of their depths. Sarah's saying abhorrent is like heinous. Heinous behavior, abhorrent behavior. What is... Let's just check. I mean, they could be used in similar circumstances, but I'm not sure they mean exactly the same thing. I just want to me, heinous means like shocking, and abhorrent means something you hate. And they could be used in similar ways, but let's just see what is heinous. What is really the meaning of heinous? Shocking, shockingly wicked or shockingly evil. And abhorrent, let's see. Something disgusting or something causing hate, causing feelings of hate. And actually, maybe it is even related to the word horror. It seems like it could be. Oh, I just want to read this again because there was an interesting expression here. When Gregson or Lestrade or Athelney Jones are out of their depths, to be out of your depth means to not have sufficient knowledge or skill to accomplish something. So these are experienced detectives, official detectives for the government. But when they're out of their depth, when their level of knowledge or skill is not enough to solve the problem, that is when they look for Sherlock Holmes. That is when they come to him. That is when they contract him. When they are out of their depth. When their skill or their abilities or their knowledge is not enough, not sufficient to solve the problem. When Gregson or Lestrade or Athelney Jones are out of their depths, which, by the way, is their normal state, the matter is laid before me. I examine the data as an expert and pronounce a specialist's opinion. I claim no credit in such cases. My name figures in no newspaper. The work itself, the pleasure of finding a field for my peculiar powers, is my highest reward. So he's bragging. He's saying, well, when all of the important detectives don't know what to do, when they're out of their depth, they come to me. And I fix the problem. I get no credit, and I don't care. I just like to use my mind in this way. But you have yourself had some experience of my methods of work in the Jefferson Hope case. Yes, indeed, I said cordially. Cordially means very politely, very nicely. Yes, indeed, I said cordially. I was never so struck by anything in my life. I even embodied it in a small brochure with the somewhat fantastic title of A Study in Scarlet. He shook his head. I glanced over it, he said. Honestly, I cannot congratulate you upon it. Detection is, or ought to be, an exact science, and should be treated in the same cold and unemotional manner. You have attempted to tinge it with romanticism, which produces much the same effect as if you worked a love story or an elopement in the fifth proposition of Euclid. Uh, So Watson said, actually, I'm so impressed by your skills that I wrote a little book called A Study in Scarlet. That was the book that we just read. And Sherlock Holmes disapproves because Watson made it sound too much like a story. And what he would have preferred would be like an academic manual describing what happened. But the romance was there, I remonstrated. I could not tamper with the facts. I'm sorry, I just have to take a 1 minute break. I'll be back in just 1 minute. All right, sorry about that. Thank you for waiting. Let's get back to the story. Some facts should be suppressed, or at least a just sense of proportion should be observed in treating them. The only point in the case which deserved mention was the curious analytical reasoning from the effects to causes by which I succeeded in unraveling it. So Sherlock is protesting. Watson wrote the story. He recorded the story, A Study in Scarlet. That's the story we just read. And Holmes is saying, well, you made it a love story. It wasn't a love story. You should have just recorded the facts to educate people on how to solve mysteries. So Holmes doesn't understand that people want interesting stories about human situations. He's saying you should just be telling people how to solve mysteries using my brilliant methods, or how I solve them using my brilliant methods. I was annoyed at this criticism of a work which had been specially designed to please him. I confess, too, that I was irritated by the egotism which seemed to demand that every line of my pamphlet should be devoted to his own special doings. More than once during the years that I had lived with him in Baker Street, I had observed that a small vanity underlay of my companion's quiet and didactic manner. All right. So, living with him for many years, I observed a small vanity underlay. To be vain means to admire yourself or to love yourself, which maybe in certain cultures that could be okay, but in this culture, to love yourself or to admire yourself too much is a very bad quality. It's a very ugly quality to think of yourself as special or as smarter than everyone else or better than everyone else. So that was something that Watson noticed about Sherlock Holmes. A small vanity underlay. So, like, it's there. That underlay part means it's there. You can see it under everything. Of my companion's quiet and didactic manner. Let's just define didactic. I think that means like teaching. Yeah, designed to teach or instruct. Very instructive or preachy. I made no remark, however, but sat, nursing my wounded leg. You know the word nurse? Nurse is someone who takes care of you when you're sick. The place where they keep babies is called a nursery. That's where you take care of babies. So nursing something means taking care of something, helping it get stronger or better, something like that. And I guess Watson's leg hurt him, so he was nursing it. Maybe he was rubbing it, helping it to feel better. My practice has extended recently to the continent, said Holmes, after a while, filling up his old briar root pipe. So when you say the continent, that means continental Europe. The UK or England is on an island, and the rest of Europe is on the continent, so they call that the continent. Sarah says, meaning of pamphlet. Pamphlet is like a little book. So here, if we look at a picture of a pamphlet, a lot of times when you see et at the final part of a word, not always, but a lot of times when you see et at the end of a word, it means something small. It's something French. So, for example, you have a cigar. A cigar is a very big thing, but a cigarette is like a small cigar. So a lot of times when you see that et at the final part of a word, it means a smaller version of something. And here is a pamphlet is like a little book. I don't know what pamph means, but here these are pamphlets. My practice has extended recently to the continent, said Holmes, after a while filling up his old briar-root pipe. I was consulted last week by Francois Lavillard, who, as you probably know, has come rather to the front lately of the French detective service. He has all the Celtic power of quick intuition, but he is deficient in a wide range of exact knowledge which is essential to the higher developments of his art. Oh, they're talking in really weird ways here. So there was a French detective who recently contacted Sherlock Holmes, and he's saying he has very good intuition, but he doesn't know a lot of things. He doesn't have a lot of knowledge about little interesting things like I do. The case was concerned with a will, and possessed some features of interest. I was able to refer him to two parallel cases, the one at Riga in 1857, the other at St. Louis in 1871, which have suggested to him the true solution. Sarah's asking about what does it mean filling up his briar root pipe. Well, a pipe is a way to smoke tobacco. So people don't do that very much anymore. I do it sometimes. I like it, actually. I haven't had a pipe in a long time, but I enjoy it. This is a pipe for smoking tobacco. And briar is a type of tree, but let's see what a briar root pipe looks like. I don't know. Oh, well, it's just a type of pipe made from a briar tree. That's funny though, because usually when they show Sherlock Holmes, what is that called? That's called a churchwarden pipe. Usually when they show Sherlock Holmes, he's smoking a pipe like this. But not this time. I've lost my place. Here is the letter which I had this morning acknowledging my assistance. He tossed over, as he spoke, a crumpled sheet of foreign notepaper. I glanced my eyes down it, catching the profusion of notes of admiration which stray magnifique, coup de maître, tour de force, and testifying to an attendant admiration of the Frenchman. He speaks as a pupil to his master, said I. So this is French, of course, but you could sort of guess what it means. Magnifique, magnificent. Coup de maître, I don't know what that means. Tour de force is a phrase that people sometimes use in English. Let's check the meaning. I think that means like a powerful show. Tour de force. Let's see. Exceptional achievement, masterful play. You sometimes will see that in English. Usually it's something that movie critics or entertainment critics will talk about. So if somebody does a performance, maybe they'll call it a tour de force, which means it was a wonderful performance, a great show. But coup de maître, I don't know. Coup de maître means mother or master. Masterful hit, powerful hit. Let's see. Probably that's what it means. Master stroke. brilliant success. "Oh, he rates my assistance too highly," said Sherlock Holmes lightly. "He has a considerable gifts himself. He possesses 2 out of 3 qualities necessary for the ideal detective. He has the power of observation and that of deduction. He's only wanting in knowledge, and that may come in time. He is now translating my small works into French." "Your works?" "Oh, didn't you know?" he cried, laughing. "Yes, I've been guilty of several monographs. They're all upon technical subjects. Here, for example, is one upon the distinction between the ashes of various tobaccos." So Sherlock Holmes is writing these books about very, very specific things, like the ashes. In case you don't know what ashes are, let's see. Ashes, when you burn something, what you have left are ashes. So Holmes wrote a little book, a little pamphlet about the different types of ashes for different tobaccos. He's writing very specific books. In it, I enumerate, that means I name, I give name to, 140 forms of cigar, cigarette, and pipe tobacco, with colored plates illustrating the difference in the ash. It is a point which is continually turning up in criminal trials, and which is sometimes of supreme importance as a clue. If you can say definitely, for example, that some murder has been done by a man who was smoking an Indian lunka, it obviously narrows your field search. What is a lunka? Oh, I'm looking at this. I still don't know what it is. Wait, let's see. Lunka, Indian. No, it still doesn't. Well, I don't know. Pachu, what's a lunka? I don't know if it's that kind of Indian or not. Let's see. It obviously narrows your field of search. To the trained eye, there's as much difference between black ash of a trichinopoly and the white fluff of a bird's eye as there is between a cabbage and a potato. So he's saying if you understand the ashes from various types of tobacco, it can tell you that they look so different. They're so different that it's very easy to spot the. Once you become used to that, it's very easy to notice the difference. "You have an extraordinary genius for minutia." Minutiae, I remarked. Minutia, you have the word minute, which, is a small measurement of time. It's only 60 seconds. But the very same spelling pronounced differently, minute, means very small. So there is a minute difference between this ash and that ash. That means there's a small difference. There is a minute difference between... Okay, I don't know if this is true, but I guess it could be true, right? Do you think... Is there a big difference between Palestinian Arabic and Egyptian Arabic? I would guess not, because they're right next to each other. And maybe you could say there's a minute difference. Oh, we could say that about English. There's a minute difference between Canadian English and American English. So unless you're really good at English, you probably wouldn't notice the difference between Canadian and American English. They sound very similar for most people. But there is a minute difference. There's a very, very small difference. If you're paying attention, you'll see it. So minutia, that's small things. little things. And what did Watson say? He said, "You have an extraordinary genius for the minutiae," meaning you're very smart when it comes to finding the very little things, looking at the very little things. I appreciate their importance. Here's my monograph upon tracing of footsteps with some remarks upon uses of plaster of Paris as a preserver of impresses. Oh, let's read that again. I appreciate their importance. Here's my monograph. So he's showing another little book that he wrote. Here's another little book that I wrote upon tracing footsteps with some remarks upon the uses of plaster of Paris. Plaster of Paris is, let me show you a picture of that. I don't know, they probably still do this. Plaster is, let me see if I can find a better picture. Did you ever have something like this done? I don't think, maybe they don't use this anymore. Maybe they use something different. But I had to do this when I was younger. Go to the dentist and have a model made. And what they use, or what they used to use, is this white material, which is plaster. And plaster is used if you break your arm. This is plaster. Plaster of Paris is just a brand, I think. Plaster. So Holmes wrote a book about footprints and using plaster of Paris to get a record of the. This is also plaster. Pachu says they use pop. What is pop? Sarah says we call it gibsa. And well, actually, I think in Latin languages they call it something very similar to that. They call it gesso. In English we call it plaster, but I saw the word gesso here. I forget how you spell it, but like in Italian or Spanish or French, it's called gesso, which I think is similar to the Arabic word. No, I don't see it. Oh, so wait, they use POP, pop, plaster of Paris. Okay, now I get it. Yeah, it's different, but it's similar. Gypsa, gesso, gypsum. It's. I think they come from the same place, is what I'm saying. Maybe they're a little bit different, but I think they come from the same word. Unlike the English word plaster, which is completely different. Here too is a curious little work upon the influence of a trade upon the form of the hand, with lithotypes of the hands of slaters, sailors, cork cutters, compositors, weavers, and diamond polishers. That is a matter of great practical interest to a scientific detective, especially in cases of unclaimed bodies, or in discovering the antecedents of criminals. But I weary you with my hobby. Not at all, I answered earnestly. It is of the greatest interest to me, especially since I've had the opportunity of observing your practical application of it. But you spoke just now of observation and deduction. Surely the one to some extent implies the other. Oh, I better read that one again. Wow, Pachu has a lot of knowledge about plaster. Do you use that in your job, Pachu? Using plaster? You have a short word for it, POP, and you know the the components of it very well. Oh, wait, let's go back. There was a lot of information in this last. Sarah's asking about I weary you. No, weary means tired. It isn't used too much in contemporary English. So he's saying, I'm making you tired with my hobby, talking about my hobby. Uh, but actually, or I'm boring you. I think maybe it would be better to think of that as boring. I'm boring you with my hobby. But you would never talk like that in contemporary English. Where did he say that? So he says, I weary you with my hobby. I'm boring you talking about my hobby. And then Watson says, Not at all, I answered earnestly. It's one of the greatest interests to me. It is of the greatest interest to me, especially since I've had the opportunity of observing your practical application of it. So Watson is saying, No, you're not boring me. That's very interesting, especially since I've seen you actually working. It's very fascinating to hear you talk about it. But you spoke just now of observation and deduction. Surely the one, to some extent, implies the other. So Watson is saying you were talking about observation and then deduction, like, maybe reverse engineering what happened. Well, let's see. Why, hardly, he answered, leaning back luxuriously in his armchair and sending up thick blue wreaths from his pipe. For example, observation shows me that you have been to the Wigmore Street post office this morning, but deduction lets me know that when there you dispatched a telegram. So Sherlock Holmes is trying to explain the difference between observation and deduction. Something about Watson's appearance shows Holmes that he visited the post office. And he's calling that an observation. I can see that you've been to the post office this morning, but I can deduce that you sent a telegraph or telegram. Right, said I. Right on both points, but I confess I don't see how you arrived at it. It was a sudden impulse on my part, and I have mentioned it to no one. So Watson is saying you're right, but I don't understand how you know that. I didn't tell anybody. Actually, I didn't plan to go there. When you talk about an impulse, that's something you suddenly decide to do without planning. So I went to the post office on impulse. It means I wasn't planning on going there. I just went there. Pachi says, How did you deduce that he went to the post office? I think he's going to explain it in a minute. Let's see. But this, I guess, is the difference between observation, something that you see, and deduction, something that you can go through some steps and you can find the answer. So I think that's the difference. Observation, you can just see it. Deduction, you have to take some steps before you arrive at that conclusion. Sarah's saying, is there a difference between observation and deduction? I think that's what he's about to explain. That when you observe something, it's like you see something, you notice something. But when you deduce something, you have to take some steps. You have to see. Let's see. I'm just guessing. But I think now Watson is saying, how do you know that? How could you know that? And now Sherlock Holmes will explain how he knows it. Now we're all asking, how does he know? And here's what Sherlock Holmes answers. It is simplicity itself, he remarked, chuckling. Chuckling is laughing. That's chuckling. It is simplicity itself, he remarked, chuckling at my surprise. So absurdly simple that an explanation is superfluous. Superfluous means not necessary, unnecessary. So he's saying, it's so simple, I don't even have to explain it. It's not necessary to explain it. It's obvious. and yet it may serve to define the limits of observation and of deduction. Observation tells me that you have little reddish mold adhering to your instep. Okay. So the observation, the thing that he can see is that there's a little red. Remember when you put ish after something, it means a little red. Maybe so it's maybe like red brown, reddish. Let's see. Reddish. Probably if I put reddish, we'll see something that's maybe brown, maybe wait. See, we have these different kinds of red, and some are kind of brown. So you could call them reddish, and some of them are kind of black, but there's still a little red. You could call them reddish. So a little reddish mold on your instep. Instep, I think, is like the inside of the foot. Oh, actually, it's the top of the foot. Whoops. So the instep is the top of the foot. You have the arch of the foot, and then you have the instep, which is the top. I didn't know that. Sarah says ish is approximately like 5-ish. Right, exactly. You'll hear that. Let's meet around 5-ish. It's very informal, a very informal way of talking. And it's definitely used all the time in contemporary English. So this is Holmes's observation. You have a little reddish mold on your instep. Just opposite the Seymour office street, they've taken up the pavement to throw up some earth which lies in such a way that it is difficult to avoid treading in it, entering. So he's saying, I know that at this particular post office, they're doing construction work in the road. And it's impossible to get inside the post office and not get some of this reddish, brownish dirt on your shoes. So it was obvious that you went to the post office, or you were at least in that street. The earth is of this peculiar reddish tint, which is found, as far as I know, nowhere else in the neighborhood. So much is observation. The rest is deduction. How then did you deduce the telegram? So now so the observation, that's just what he saw. But the deduction must be, he must take some steps to come to this, I think. Let's see. Why, of course I knew that you had not written a letter since I sat opposite you all morning. So he's saying, well, I know that you went to the post office, but I know also that you didn't write a letter because we've been together all morning. I didn't see you writing a letter. So why did you go to the post office if you didn't write a letter? I also saw in your open desk that you have a sheet of stamps and a thick bundle of postcards. What could you go into the post office for then but to send a wire? So he's saying, well, also I know in your desk you have stamps and envelopes and all of that stuff. So there's really no reason for you to go into the post office unless you were writing a telegram. Eliminate all other factors, and the one which remains must be the truth. So that's the deduction process. Well, he didn't go to the post office to send a letter because I know he didn't write a letter. And even if he did write a letter, he still didn't need to go to the post office because I know that he has stamps and I know that he has postcards. In this case, it's certainly so, I replied after a little thought. The thing, however, is, as you say, of the simplest. Would you think of me impertinent? Impertinent means like rude. Do you think it would be rude if I were to put your theories to a more severe test? On the contrary, he said, it would prevent me from taking a second dose of cocaine. So he's saying, actually, if you tried to test my mind a little bit more, maybe I wouldn't even take any more drugs. I would just talk to you, because that could be interesting. I should be delighted to look into any problem which you might submit to me. I've heard you say that it's difficult for a man to have any object in daily use without leaving the impress of his individuality upon it in such a way that a trained observer might read it. So Holmes is saying, I've heard you say that when anybody does something, it's impossible for them to not leave something of themselves in it. Now, I have here a watch, which has recently come into my possession. Would you have the kindness to let me have an opinion upon the character or habits of the late owner? So Watson gives him a watch, and he says, what can you tell me about the person who gave me this watch? I handed him over the watch with some slight feeling of amusement in my heart, for the test was, as I thought, an impossible one, and intended it as a lesson against the somewhat dogmatic tone which he occasionally assumed. Okay, being dogmatic means not being flexible. Well, let me just define that in a better way. But dogmatic means like sticking to the rules or not being flexible about rules. Being dogmatic, stubbornly opinionated, asserting principles as absolute truth. He balanced the watch in his hands, gazed hard at the dial, opened the back and examined the works, first with his naked eyes, and then with a powerful convex lens. I could hardly keep from smiling at his crestfallen face when he finally snapped the case to hand it back and handed it back. Crestfallen means disappointed, I think, but let's just, again, these are not really important words for everyday use. Sad, disappointed, dejected, discouraged. So he's looking at the watch and then he closes it. He looks disappointed and he hands it back to Watson. There are hardly any data, he remarked. The watch has been recently cleaned, which robs me of my most suggestive facts. You're right, I answered. It was cleaned before being sent to me. In my heart, I accused my companion of putting forward a most lame and impotent excuse to cover his failure. What data could he expect from an uncleaned watch? So Watson says, yeah, you're right. It was just cleaned before I got it. But in his head, he's thinking, even if it wasn't cleaned, what could he possibly get from that? Though unsatisfactory, my research has not been entirely barren. Remember, barren means can't produce anything. Nothing lives there. Nothing can survive there. So when he says my research has not been entirely barren, that means I did produce something. Something is alive here. He observes, staring at the ceiling with dreamy, lackluster eyes. Subject to your correction, I should judge that the watch belonged to your elder brother, who inherited it from your father. So somehow Holmes decided that the watch belonged to Watson's brother, and before that it belonged to his father. Sarah says barren means infertility. Yes, but when you talk, you can. You probably shouldn't use that word. In the past, that word has been used to refer to women who cannot have children. Uh, I don't think that people will use that term anymore to describe women who can't have children. It's kind of offensive. But it is used to, for example, talk about the desert. If you say the desert is barren, that means nothing can live in the desert. Nothing can survive in the desert. Or to have a barren mind would mean there are no thoughts in your mind. Your mind is blank. Nothing happens in there. But you wouldn't probably not use it in that way to talk about women. That you gather, no doubt, from the HW on the back. So on the back, there are initials HW. So somebody Watson, Henry Watson, or Harry Watson, or something like that. Sarah says, "What is the modern term for infertility?" I think infertile, probably just infertile would be best, because barren is kind of an insult, like nothing can live there. So it's not real. It was in the past used that way, but I don't think that it would be acceptable to use that word in that manner now. Quite so. The W suggests your own name. The date of the watch is nearly 50 years back. The initials are as old as the watch, so it was made for the last generation. Jewelry usually descends to the eldest son, and he is most likely to have the same name as the father. Your father has, if I remember right, been dead many years. It has therefore been in the hands of your eldest brother. Right so far, said I. Anything else? So this is all deduction. He was a man of untidy habits, very untidy and careless. He was left with good prospects, but he threw away his chances, lived for some time in poverty with occasional short intervals of prosperity, and finally, taking to drink, he died. That is all I can gather. I sprang up from my chair and limped impatiently about the room with considerable bitterness in my heart. This is unworthy of you, Holmes, said I. I could not have believed. So he's basically saying that Watson's father was irresponsible and he died an alcoholic, which made Watson pretty angry. This is unworthy of you, Holmes, I said. I could not have believed that you would have descended to this. You have made inquiries into the history of my unhappy brother, and you now pretend to deduce this knowledge in some fanciful way. Oh, actually, no, he's accusing his brother of dying of alcoholism and being careless. And it's true, apparently, because Watson is saying, somehow you did an investigation of my life and you discovered these things about my brother to make this show for me. You cannot expect me to believe that you have read all of this from his old watch. It is unkind, and to speak plainly, has a touch of charlatanism in it. A charlatan is a person who claims to have special powers but doesn't, and cheats people. Let's see. What happens if we... If we look for pictures of charlatans, we should find pictures of people cheating other people or trying to trick other people. See, like this man is selling a magic drink. It will fix all of your problems. Snake oil. Right? Do they do this in your country where they try to trick you into to picking the right, I don't know, the right ball or the right cup? The charlatan tricks people. Cheats people. So Watson is saying, you must be a charlatan. You must be cheating. You knew all of this. You investigated my brother. That's how you know. Sarah says, is that gambling? That one picture was gambling. That's a very common trick in the street. I've seen it here in Mexico. I don't know if I've seen it being done anywhere else. I know it happens in many big cities. Probably they do it in Egypt, but I don't know, maybe because gambling might be a problem in Egypt, but like a serious, like if you got caught gambling, maybe that would have serious consequences. But I think even, here in Mexico, they have like a little table and they set it up, but they can fold up the table and run away very quickly because what they're doing is very illegal. But they do it anyway. So maybe they do the same thing in Egypt. They're just very quick and careful. My dear doctor, said he kindly, pray accept my apologies, viewing the matter as an abstract. Sarah says gambling is prohibited and illegal. Yeah, but maybe still people do it anyway, right? Like they just, like I said, like here in Mexico, they have like a little table that they put out very quickly and they try to trick people very quickly, but they can just fold the table and run before the police catch them. My dear doctor, he said kindly, pray accept my apologies. Viewing the matter as an abstract problem, I have forgotten how personal and painful a thing it might be to you. I assure you, however, that I have never known that you had a brother until you handed me the watch. Then how in the name of all that is wonderful did you get these facts? They're absolutely correct in every particular. And that is good luck. I could only say that was the balance of probability. I did not at all expect to be so accurate. But it was not mere guesswork. No, I never guess. It is a shocking habit, destructive to the logical faculty. What seems strange to you is only so because you do not follow my train of thought, or observe the small facts upon which large inferences may depend. For example, I began by stating your brother was careless. When you observe the lower part of the watch case, you notice that it is not only dinted in 2 places, but it is cut and marked all over from the habit of keeping other hard objects, such as coins or keys, in the same pocket. So the reason that he said that his brother was careless was because he didn't take very good care of the watch. You could see little dents. He says dint, but I think it's the same thing. Let me show you what a dent is. Oh. If you have something metallic or made from metal, it doesn't have to be metal, but metal is the most obvious. Sometimes if the metal gets hit, it will leave a mark, and these are dents. See, this is dented. Well, no, you can't. There's a dent. There's another dent. Here's a big dent. There's a dent. So he noticed that the watch was dented. And that's why he said that whoever owned the watch was careless. Surely it's no great feat to assume that a man who treats his 50-guinea watch so cavalierly must be a careless man. How much is 50 guineas? Let's see. I'm just asking ChatGPT. Oh, 1890. I put 1980. Oh, well, 50 guineas is just 50, 50 pounds. So, wait. Oh, no, no, no. This is very expensive. Today, that would be around 8,000 pounds. So, a 50 guinea watch from 1890 in today's currency would be around $10,000 almost. Pretty fancy watch. And to treat something cavalierly means to treat something without taking care of it, to treat it in a bad way, let's say. So surely it's no great feat to assume that a man who treats a 50 guinea watch so cavalierly, so carelessly, must be a careless man. Neither is it very far-fetched. Far-fetched means easy to well, far-fetched means not easy to believe. Far-fetched means difficult to believe. So if he says it isn't far-fetched, it means it isn't difficult to believe. Sarah's asking about the word precious. I don't remember the word precious being used here. Where was that? Precious. Far. Oh, so you're asking about far-fetched. Oh, precious is the meaning of far-fetched. No, far-fetched. Fetch means go and get something. So far-fetched means you have to go very far to get it. And it's an expression used now. It means if something is far-fetched, it means not believable, difficult to believe. Because you have to go very far in order to get it, in order to obtain it. It's not worth going that far. So if a far-fetched story, for example, is a story that is difficult to believe. A far-fetched proposition or a far-fetched proposal, that would be a proposal that you don't have a lot of faith in it. Doesn't sound like it's going to work. So in the story, he's saying, I think this man was careless because the watch was very valuable. 8,000 pounds, $10,000. And if he treated his watch like that, this very valuable watch, in this way, putting dents in it, then he was a careless man. It's not far-fetched to call him careless. It's not difficult to believe that he was careless. Then a man who inherits one article of such value is pretty well provided for in other respects. I nodded to show that I followed his reasoning. It is very customary for pawnbrokers in England, when they take a watch, to scratch the number of the ticket with a pinpoint upon the inside of the case. It is more handy than a label. All right, a pawnbroker or a pawn shop, if you need some money, you can go to a special store and they will give you can give them something valuable, and then in return they will give you money. Not a lot of money, not the complete value of the item, but some money. And they'll also give you a ticket. So you have maybe 1 month. In 1 month you can go back and buy it at the same price. After a month, then you have a problem. Because they would charge more money. Or they will keep it and try to sell it for more money. And that's a pawn shop or a pawnbroker. I don't know. Do they have pawn shops in Nepal or in Egypt? I don't know. Usually this is how you know you're in a bad neighborhood or a very poor neighborhood, because there'll be a pawn shop. So they usually don't look like very nice places. They're not nice places normally. So you go into this store, maybe you have a gold necklace or something, and they'll offer you, they'll say, okay, I'll give you a loan for $100. Maybe the necklace is worth $500, and they'll say, okay, I'll give you $100, and then you take the $100, do whatever, and maybe you have like a 1 month period where you can return to the pawn shop and buy your necklace again for, I don't know, $120. You have to pay a little extra. And if you don't return within a month, then probably they will sell your necklace at full price, or maybe a little less than full price, to make money. So that's a pawn shop or a pawnbroker. Sarah says, is it like a jewelry store? No, because you can take anything. You could take your phone. You could. I was just using that as an example because I think a lot of people do use it with jewelry. But it could be a phone. It could be, look at this, musical instruments, anything that's worth money. But they'll offer you a very low amount of money for it. But then you have a period of like maybe 1 month where you can return, and you can return the money and they will give it to you. But then after that month, then they'll charge a big price for it, and so somebody else can buy it. They'll sell it. See, a lot of these are electrical things: radios, TVs, phones. It could be anything. It's just a way to get money if you don't have any money and you need money. And you can go there to buy things cheaply. Sarah says, oh, when we sell things like jewelry, we go to the jewelry store. Yeah, and you probably would get a good price or a better price if you go to a jewelry store. A pawn store is a place where people go who are desperate for money. So they will take their jewelry or their phone or whatever, and the pawn shop will give them a very low amount of money for it. But they have a period of maybe 1 month where they can return the money and get their item. But after that time, if they don't, the pawn shop will raise the price and they'll sell it to a customer. So, if you want to sell jewelry, you go to a jewelry store and you try to get a good price. But if you're desperate for money, you go to the pawn shop and you get a little bit of money, and the pawnbroker hopes you don't return. Okay, well, we're almost finished with this. Just a few more paragraphs. It is very customary for pawnbrokers in England to, when they get a watch, to scratch the number of the ticket with a pinpoint upon the inside of the case. So in England, at that time, if you went to a pawnbroker, the pawnbroker would write the ticket number, the receipt number, on the inside of the watch with a pin. It is more handy than a label, and there's no risk of the number being lost or transposed. There are no less than 4 such numbers visible to my lens on the inside of the case. Inference? That your brother was often at low water. So Sherlock Holmes could see that 4 times a number was written in the watch. So that means his brother 4 times went to a pawnbroker, which means his brother was desperate for money several times. Finally, secondary inference that he had occasional bursts of prosperity, or he could not have redeemed the pledge. So 2 things. One, his brother was often desperate for money because he pawned the watch 4 times. He risked losing the watch 4 times, but also several times he was able to get a lot of money because he was able to repurchase the watch, rebuy the watch 4 times. I think Sarah's asking about at low water. I think that's just a polite way of saying he didn't have money. But again, it's not something that I think you would say in contemporary English, at least not North America. Finally, I asked you to look at the inner plate, which contains a keyhole. Look at the thousands of scratches all around the hole. Marks where the key has slipped. What sober man's key could have scored those grooves? So we've seen the word sober before. That means that's the opposite of drunk. Somebody who's sober is not drunk. So only a drunk man would have problems putting the key into the watch, because Sherlock Holmes could see many scratches, many little marks all around the keyhole. But that would not be a person who is sober, a person who is not drunk, would not have that problem. But you will never see a drunkard's watch without them. He winds it at night and leaves these traces of his unsteady hand. Where's the mystery in all of this? It's as clear as daylight, I answered. I regret the injustice which I did you. I should have had more faith in your marvelous faculty. May I ask whether you have any professional inquiry on foot at present? So, Watson is asking, do you have any professional engagements? Are you working on anything right now with the police? None, hence the cocaine. So he's saying, no, I don't have any projects right now. That's why I'm doing cocaine. I cannot live without brain work. What else is there to live for? Stand at the window here. Was ever such a dreary, dismal, unprofitable world? See how the yellow fog swirls down the street and drifts across the dung-colored houses. What could be more hopelessly prosaic and material? Sarah's asking about inquiry on foot. So Watson is asking, do you have any professional inquiry? Meaning, are you actively working on anything with the police? And this on foot is probably an expression in the past. I think the modern expression would be at hand, like something in your hand in the moment. But I don't think that people in contemporary English would use on foot. I mean, it makes sense to me, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that in real life. So it just means in your hands, like at hand. Do you have any professional inquiry at hand at present? Meaning on your plate with you, something you're working on, in your possession? In your possession is probably the best way to think of it. But it isn't something that you should worry about learning or trying to practice. What could be more hopelessly prosaic and material? What is the use of having powers, Doctor, when one has no field upon which to exert them? Crime is commonplace, existence is commonplace, and no qualities save those which are commonplace have any function upon the earth. I had opened my mouth to reply to his tirade, when with a crisp knock our landlady entered, bearing a card upon the brass salver. A young lady for you, sir, she said, addressing my companion. Miss Mary Morstan, he read. I have no recollection of the name. Ask the young lady to step up. Mrs. Hudson? Don't go, Doctor. I should prefer that you remain. All right, so that's the end of chapter 1 of The Sign of the Four. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to practice some vocabulary and expressions while working on accent reduction. So I'm going to take a little break while I put some exercises together, and then Pachu has volunteered to join us. So when we return in a few minutes, Pachu will come with us. He'll join us in Discord, and we'll continue the video and we'll work on accent reduction. So don't go away if you want to improve your accent. And I will be back in just a few minutes. right, we're back. Thank you for waiting. Let's move up. Just bringing up the vocabulary list here. Wait a minute. I'm confusing myself. Okay. Here we go. This is our vocabulary list for today. Hold out, relish, abhorrent, and to be out of your depth. Now, let's turn off the music. And then we'll go to Discord and find Pachu, hopefully. I hope. If all goes well. Let's see. Hello.
Sir.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. How are you doing today?
Great.
Great. Okay, fantastic. All right. Let's see. Pachu, have you ever seen this phrasal verb before? Hold out.
So, can you down the page, sir? I cannot
You don't see it?
see.
You don't see
Yes.
hold out? Well, I made it
Yes, sir.
big. Let's see. I don't have any example yet, but let's see. I'm just going to put us. You don't see that on the screen because what I'm looking at, I can see it pretty
Okay. Yes.
hold out.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, sir. It's just yes, it is okay.
Okay. Have you seen that before? To hold out for something.
Hold out. Maybe we'll hold out.
Hold out. That means like you're waiting for something, but actually, I think maybe a better way of thinking about it is resisting. Like you want something, but you're waiting for it to be better. So, for example, holding out for a discount. Maybe you want to buy something. You're really tempted to buy something, maybe a new phone or something, but you think if you wait 1 or 2 months, there will be a big discount. So you resist buying it, or you wait to buy it. You wait for the discount. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yes. Yes.
So if I have this sentence, she's holding out for a better deal, what does that mean?
Okay. So she's holding out for a better deal. Means she has to wait for some time to for better deal. Yeah.
Okay, a better deal, right. What if we changed it to for a promotion?
Okay. So she's she is holding out for a promotion.
What does that mean? What do you understand from that sentence?
So she's waiting. She's waiting for her promotion.
Yeah, but there's an idea of resistance. Like maybe she's unhappy with her job, maybe she needs more money and she wants to quit. But so the temptation is to quit. But instead she waits because she thinks maybe in a few months, maybe in a year, I can get a promotion. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, sir.
So
Yes.
she's waiting for a promotion. She's resisting quitting. She's resisting the temptation of quitting because she thinks she can get a promotion. She's waiting for a promotion.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Is that pretty clear?
Yeah.
In our first
Yes.
in this sentence, she's holding out for a promotion. What are the important words?
So is holding out promotion.
Mm-hmm. She's holding out for a promotion. Mm-hmm. What are the important words? Can you repeat them again, please?
So the holding out and
Um,
promotion.
okay. Now there are two syllables in the word holding. Which syllable has all of the sound?
It's hold,
Oh,
hold.
whole has all of the sound in holding. And I guess I think we could also emphasize out here. I think that might work. Uh, Sarah says holding and promotion. The phrasal verb Sarah is holding out. It's two words and it means like waiting, but with the idea of resistance also, like resisting some kind of temptation and waiting. Like maybe you smoke cigarettes and you stop. Oh, I really want to smoke a cigarette. Just hold out for one more day. Resist the temptation. Wait one more day, and maybe tomorrow it will be better. So there's two ideas in that phrasal verb. First is wait. Second is resisting some kind of temptation. Okay, and promotion, Pachu, is that also an important word?
Yes, sir. Promotion.
And which syllable has all of the strength in that word? Promotion.
Okay. So it's a promotion.
So like this, promotion.
Promotion.
Is this correct? Promotion. Or is it
Yes,
promotion?
promotion. Promotion. Motion. Yeah, it's a
Motion.
motion.
Motion. Right.
Promotion.
He's holding out for a promotion. How will you say these three words? Out for a. If out is an important sound, how do those three words sound together?
Okay. So out out for a promotion. Out
Out
for a
for
promotion.
out for a out for a out for a
Out for a out for a
holding out for a.
holding out for a.
She's holding out for a.
She's holding out for a.
She's holding out for a promotion.
She's holding out for a promotion.
Hmm. If I say, Pachu, is she holding out for a better deal? Is she holding out for a better deal? How will you answer no? Promotion.
No, she's holding out for promotion.
So tell me the negative. Is she holding out for a better deal? How will you tell me no?
No, she isn't. She's holding out for promotion.
Okay, but now don't forget though, she finishes with a vowel sound and isn't starts with a vowel sound. So you have to produce more vowel sound to make both of them clear. She isn't.
She she isn't.
She isn't holding out for she isn't holding out for a better deal. She's holding out for a promotion.
She isn't holding out for better deal. She's holding out for promotion.
And remember the deal. Now that word deal, is that a big sound or a little sound? Deal.
Deal.
Yes.
Deal.
Deal. Not deal, but deal. Very long sound. Very long vowel sound. Try again.
Deal. Deal.
No, she isn't holding out
Deal.
for a better
Deal.
deal. No, she isn't holding out for a better deal. She's holding out for a promotion.
No, she's holding out for better deal.
Hmm.
She's holding out for promotion.
Okay. What if we say, uh, oh, I think well, let's move on to the next word. Actually, I know that we've talked about this word before. Let me just erase this. But I don't remember if we did any exercise with it. Did we ever do an exercise with relish before?
Really, yes,
We have.
but
Okay. Well, we're going to practice it
Yes,
again today.
relish.
I forget. I know because sometimes I remember that we talked about a word, but I don't remember if we actually did an exercise with that word. But that's okay. We can practice it again. Relish. What does that mean? Relish.
Okay, relish means enjoy.
Enjoy. Enjoy. Enjoy.
Enjoy.
Enjoy a lot. Enjoy
Enjoy.
something a lot. Uh, so what does this
Yeah.
mean? Here's a sentence. He relishes a good challenge. What does that mean?
Uh, he relishes a good challenge means he enjoyed a challenge.
That's right. He
He
enjoys it very much. He enjoys it
enjoys
a lot.
challenge.
He enjoys it a lot.
Enjoy,
What are the
enjoys a
important
lot.
words? What are the important words in that sentence?
So it relishes and
Res. Okay.
good,
Hmm.
good and challenge.
Okay. A good. Okay. Uh, so now that word relishes, how many syllables does that have?
Really, relishes. Three
Okay.
relishes.
And which syllable
Relishes.
has all of the sound? Relishes. Relishes.
Relishes. Relishes. Relishes.
Which one?
Lis.
So like
Relishes.
this, like this. Relicious. Is that correct? Relicious.
No, no. Relishes. Ariel.
Yeah, that's
Relishes.
re. Re is the big sound. Re is the big sound, not le.
Ra. Ra.
Okay. And how about challenge? Challenge.
Challenge. Challenge.
Chal.
Challenge.
Challenge. Okay.
Chal.
Now, do we have a problem? Do we have a problem in this sentence?
So he relishes a good challenge. No, it's okay.
Well, we've got good. We've got a big sound there, and we're also making chal very big.
Yes,
That's
yes,
two big
yes.
sounds hitting each other. Is that possible in English? Can you
Yeah.
have two big sounds hitting?
No, no,
So what do
no,
you have
sir.
to do?
Yeah.
If you want to make both of them
So we have to,
important, what do you do?
yeah. So we have to take pause between the two strong sound and then so the good challenge.
Yeah, that's right. So you can put the two big sounds together, but only if you pause. Because in English, you can only go big, small, big, small, big, small. You can't go big, big. So if you want, you could maybe make challenge small if you want, but you can keep them both big also. He relishes a good challenge.
He relishes a good challenge.
How would you say relishes plus a?
Relishes a, relishes a,
Mhm. Relishes a.
relishes a.
He relishes a good challenge.
He relishes a good challenge.
Let's change good challenge to his morning run. His morning run.
So he relishes his morning run.
He relishes his, you've got to say, he relishes his morning run.
He relishes his morning run.
He relishes his morning run. That's right. That's good. Okay. Now, if I say, Pachu, does he relish a good challenge? How will you answer no?
No, he doesn't relishes good challenge.
Uh, I think you made a couple of mistakes when you answered that. Can you try again?
No, he doesn't relish a good challenge.
Okay, no, he doesn't relish a good challenge. Tell me again, one more time.
No, he doesn't relish a good challenge.
No, he doesn't relish a good challenge. What does he relish?
So he relishes morning run.
Can you say that again?
So okay, so he relishes he relishes morning run.
Is it he relish or he relishes? Which one?
He relishes he relishes its
Okay.
morning run.
How would you add? Let's look at that for a minute. Okay. I'm just going to let me write that. He relishes his morning run. Okay. So I know that would take a minute to appear for you on the screen. Well, I'll just make that big while we're waiting. And can you see the sentence where it says he relishes his morning run?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
sir.
How many syllables in relishes?
Relishes three.
3. Okay. And the word his, is that an important word or not really?
No, no,
It
no
really is
important.
not here. So it's going to sort of attach to relishes. Relishes is 3 syllables, but suddenly we're going to make it 4. And it will sound like this.
Yeah.
Relishes is.
Relishes.
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 Relishes is. Can you say ziz?
Ziz.
Ziz?
Ziz.
Shiziz? Shiziz?
Ziz. Ziz.
Lishiziz? Lishiziz?
Lishes.
Relishes is.
Relishes.
Relishes is morning run.
Relishes is morning run.
He relishes his morning run.
He relishes his morning run.
That's right. Sarah says, "Oh, do we omit the H sound when we're connecting relishes and his?" If that's really part of what we've been talking about quite a bit, when you have these little words like his or her, or even the word them, like if you say tell them, tell is an important sound. It's an important word. Them is not important, and so even that sound the just disappears, and it becomes tell 'em, or tell her becomes teller. When you've got the big small pattern and that them or her or him, whatever it is unimportant, those sounds are not very strong and they sometimes disappear. So instead of relishes his, in typical spoken English, it's relishes is. So, Pachu, does he relish a good challenge? Tell me no, and then tell me morning run.
No, he doesn't relish a good challenge. He relishes his morning run.
He relishes his morning run.
He relishes his morning run.
And even when you say no, he, the H disappears a lot of times in conversational English, and it sounds like no-y. No, he doesn't.
Okay.
No, he doesn't relish a good challenge. He relishes his morning run.
No, no, he relishes a good.
No, he doesn't.
No, no, he. Okay, 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 sir. So no, no, he doesn't relish a good challenge. He relishes his morning run.
He relishes his morning run. All right. Now, I think the next word, abhorrent, I don't think that we've done that before, have we? I guess we probably talked about it before, but I don't remember actually practicing it. Do you remember that?
No, sir.
No? Okay, good.
Maybe.
That's good.
Hmm.
So it's new information. Sarah says, like, did he becomes did he? That's right. Because did is important because it signals a question, but the he, it's not really so important if we already know who we're talking about, which we probably do if we're saying he. So did he, did he, like that. Is it correct? Sarah's saying, is it correct? Well, I don't know if it's correct, but that's what everybody does. So it's two different things, I think. Okay, so abhorrent means something that is unacceptable, something disgusting, something you hate. Okay. It's a
Okay.
pretty fancy word. That's it's not uncommon, but it's not that common either. If Pacho, if I say violence is abhorrent to her, what does that mean?
Yeah. Yes, violence is disgusting here to her.
Yeah, it's something that's
Uh,
really horrible to. I think that abhorrent and horrible have the same root word. You can see that HORRE in there. I think they
yes, yeah,
so that might
yeah,
be
yes,
even if it's not true, but I think it is true. But even if it isn't true, that might be a good way to remember.
yes, yeah, I got it. Yeah, I got it idea.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
So violence is horrible to her. Violence is abhorrent. But I think the word abhorrent is stronger than horrible because it has like the idea of
Okay.
hate or something like that. Something she hates. Okay. Can you read that sentence, Pachu? Violence is abhorrent to her.
Violence is abhorrent to her.
Okay. Some people might say abhorrent with no H, and some people might pronounce the H. I think I prefer it if you pronounce the H. Abhorrent. Abhorrent.
Yes,
Like
yes. Abhorrent,
abhor-
abhorrent.
abhorrent.
Yes,
Okay. And what are the important
abhorrent.
what are the
Yes.
important words in that sentence?
So is it two word is a violence
Mhm.
and abhorrent.
Okay. Violence. How many syllables does that word have? Violence.
Vi- Violence is a three.
And
Violence.
which syllable has all of the
Violence. Violence. Where is the first? Violence. Violence.
vi.
Violence.
How about abhorrent?
Violence.
Abhorrent. Which syllable has all of the sound? Abhorrent.
Abhorrent. Hor.
Hor.
Abhorrent.
That's right. So Sarah's saying, what's the difference between to her and for her? But then Sarah answers her own question and says, for her is something for her sake. That's true. If you say for her, it's something that she's receiving, and it kind of sounds like a benefit, something that she will benefit from. But to her means it's happening, like it's something that she's experiencing. So that's kind of the difference. Although sometimes prepositions don't make too much sense. So we're finding the logic, the little logic we can find in it, but that doesn't always work. Prepositions, unfortunately. Okay. So Achu, how will you say to her in a conversational way? Neither of those words
Is
are important.
so tar,
To her,
tar,
to her, to her, to her,
tour, tour.
to her. Can you say run
Yes.
to her, run to her, run to her, run to her?
Rentour, rentour,
Can you say whore into her, whore into her,
orintour,
abhorrent,
orintour,
abhorrent to her, abhorrent to her?
abhorrentour, abhorrentour,
Can you say sis, sis, sis? Just repeat that sound. Sis.
sage,
Can you say
sage,
can you say lunces?
lenses, lenses,
Can you say lenses? Lenses?
lenses, lenses.
Violence is abhorrent to her.
Violence is abhorrent to her.
Abhorrent.
Abhorrent,
Abhorrent.
abhorrent,
Abhorrent to her.
abhorrent to her.
Violence is abhorrent to her.
Violence is abhorrent to her.
Okay. Let's change it. Let's say the idea. How would you change it if we use the phrase the idea instead?
So the idea is abhorrent to her.
Now that word idea, how many syllables does it have?
Idea is a two.
Well,
Idea,
oh, it has
idea.
three. It has three syllables. Idea.
Okay.
What are the three syllables?
Idea.
That's right. And which syllable has all of the sound?
Okay. So idea. I.
So like this.
Idea.
Idea. Is it like that? Is that right? Idea.
Idea. Idea.
Mm-hmm.
Idea. Dia.
D. D. D.
D. D.
The
Okay.
idea.
D.
The idea. Can you say that? The idea.
The idea. The idea.
The idea is abhorrent to her.
The idea is abhorrent to her.
Mm-hmm. The idea is abhorrent to her.
The idea is abhorrent to her.
Okay, is it abhorrent or abhorrent? Which one is correct?
Okay. So it's abhorrent. Abhorrent.
The idea is abhorrent to her.
The idea is abhorrent to her.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How will you make a why question with that sentence?
So why is the idea abhorrent to her?
Okay. Why is the idea abhorrent to her? And what are the important words in your question?
So the why is the idea abhorrent to her?
Not abhorrent, but abhorrent to her.
Abhorrent to her. Abhorrent to her.
How will you say why plus
Abhorrent.
is plus the? Why plus is plus the. Why is important, is and the are not important.
Why is the? Why is the? Why is the?
Why is the? Why is the? Why is the?
Why is the?
Why is the?
Why is the?
Why is the idea abhorrent to her?
Why is the idea abhorrent to her?
Now, how can we answer that question? I don't know. Why? So why does she hate the idea? Why is it disgusting to her? Can you think of an answer?
Okay.
Can't.
So the idea is abhorrent to her because maybe she may lose her job.
Okay,
because of
let's just
because of the bad. Yeah.
So can you give me the answer? Tell me the answer.
Okay, sir. The idea is abhorrent to her because she may lose her job.
Okay, but now remember that you have to pay attention to the correct accented syllable. If you don't do that, it would become very hard to understand the sentence. So what is the accented syllable in the word idea?
Okay, so the dia.
D, not the it's just D.
D.
So there are three syllables, I, D, and but only D gets attention. The other two parts do not get attention. The idea.
The idea.
And how about abhorrent? Where's the accented syllable in that word?
Is abhorrent. Abhorrent. Whore.
Whore,
Abhorrent.
whore, whore. That's the syllable
Whore.
with all of the sounds. Whore. So it sounds like this. The idea is abhorrent to her.
The idea is abhorrent to her.
Okay. How about in because? Which syllable has all of the sound? Because.
So because.
Cause.
Cause.
And actually, sometimes, a lot of times, we don't say the be part. We just say cause. That's very conversational to even not even say the be. The idea is abhorrent to her cause she. It's very common to not even say be, but just say cause. That's how unimportant that
Oh,
sound is. What is the next
yes.
important word in that phrase? She might lose her job.
So is lose and job.
Okay. How would you say lose plus her?
So loser. Loser.
Loser. Loser.
Loser. Loser.
She might lose her job.
She might lose her job.
Sarah wrote loser like Loser. That's how it sounds. It sounds just like that word. Loser, somebody who loses, and lose her sound the same in conversational English. Lose her job. Lose her job. She might lose her job.
Lose her job. She might lose her job.
The idea is abhorrent to her because she might lose her job.
The idea is abhorrent to her because she might lose her job.
Okay, let's do one more for today. This is an expression.
Okay, sir.
But wait, I just have to take a 1 minute break because my dogs are telling me they want to go out
Okay, sir.
and they're bothering me.
Okay,
Just give me 1 minute to let my dogs out, and then I'll be
okay,
back.
sir.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. Let's do one more. We have the expression to be out of your depth. Have you ever seen that before, Pachu? To be out of your depth.
Out of depth. No, no, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know the word depth? Have you seen that word?
Yes, you.
What does that mean? To
Yeah, you actually. Wait. Okay, so depth means like the ocean depth or water depth. Yeah, is
okay.
below height.
Right.
Yeah,
So
below.
that depth is a noun, and it's the noun form of the word deep. So probably most people probably know this word deep, which is an adjective. The ocean is deep, but depth
Yeah.
is just the noun form. So the depth of the ocean. They're talking about how
Yes.
deep is the ocean. It's just a noun form for deep. And some people might have a very difficult time pronouncing that. Can you say that word again, Pachu? Depth.
Depth.
Okay,
Depth.
you have to do this in three parts. First, you say dep. That's part number one, saying dep. Can you say dep?
Okay, it's a depth.
Dep. Okay. And then you have to stop. You have to pause. It's the only thing that you can do here. And then you make a th sound with your tongue. So 3 parts: dep, pause, dep, dep, dep.
Depth, depth, depth,
Can you
depth.
say s, s, like a snake? Can you can you make that sound? The sound of a snake? S,
Dips,
s,
dips,
s,
dips,
s. Don't
dips.
say the whole word. Just try to make that one sound like a snake. S.
Okay. So dips,
Don't
dips,
try to say the whole sound.
dips.
Just try to make that one sound. Make the sound of a snake. Don't try to pronounce the whole word. I'm just trying to get you to say that one sound, which is the sound of a snake. S. That's right. S. Okay. Now, what you do is you just move your tongue under your teeth. You bite your tongue. S.
Yes.
Can you try to make that sound? But this time, bite your tongue.
Okay.
That's right. That is the sound. Okay. So it's dep,
Yeah.
dep, stop,
Okay.
dep, dep.
Okay. So depth,
That's right.
depth.
Stop. You have to stop.
Okay.
Don't try to
Okay. I
push them.
got it.
You cannot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't push them together. You have to pause. Dep.
Okay. So I'll try depth,
That's good.
depth.
Just pause. You have to pause. You can't push those two sounds together. There are 3 parts, and the second part is a pause. Dep, pause, dep.
Depth, depth,
Forgetting the last part. Depth.
depth, depth.
Yeah, you're getting close.
Depth.
It takes some practice. And the thing that you have to practice,
Okay. So
pausing in the middle. That's the part that you need to do. You need to pause in the middle. 3 parts. Dep, pause.
okay. Okay. So depth,
No,
depth.
you're still trying to pronounce them together, but they're not. It's dep, and then pause, and then
So depth, depth, depth.
yeah. It would take a little bit of practice. So,
Okay.
but I
Okay.
think you can do it.
I will do it.
I think you
Yes.
can do it because I've heard you do it a couple of times, but you're just getting confused and trying to pronounce everything together instead of step by step.
Yes.
That's all you have.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Okay. But to be out of your depth means to be that you're out of your skill level, that you're out of your area, that you don't. It's something that you can't manage or understand because you don't have the skills to do it.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
So if I said, uh, let's see, I am used to crowded places, but when I visited India, I was out of my depth. What does that mean?
So okay. Sentences. I am used to crowded places, but when I went to India, when I visited India, I was out of my depth.
No, that was a pretty
So
good depth, actually. What does that mean?
so I think so out of depth. So
Uh,
so I did not remember the meaning.
it means
Out of
that
depth.
I didn't have the skills. I couldn't manage it. I couldn't manage this situation. Like I thought I could manage a crowded place. I thought it would be easy to manage a crowded place. Oh, I've been on a crowded bus. I've been in a crowded city. But then when I visited India, that was very different. That was a very different kind of crowded.
Okay. Okay. So it was difficult to manage the situation.
Yes, because maybe I have some skills with crowds, but not enough skills.
Okay, so it is also related to the skill.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
about this is beyond my skill level. Uh,
Okay, yeah, beyond my yeah.
when I started writing a book, I realized I was out of my depth. What does that mean?
So the can we say like out of idea, out of sometimes people say out of breath.
Out
Is the
of
same
breath?
thing or different?
Well, out of breath would mean being tired, but breath, you mean like
Okay.
breathing?
Yes. Yeah. Just yeah. Breathing.
Sarah says, "Have you been to India?" That sounds like a real example. Yeah, when I was younger, like 30 years ago, I visited India several times when I was like 20, around my 20s. And that was true because well, I wasn't really used to crowded places, but India has a lot of people. So it was very weird for me because I could not I actually I remember I remember what this was 1994, so that was like 31 years ago, and I think India is probably a very different place now, but
Yes.
I landed in at that time the city was called Bombay. Now they call it Mumbai, but it was like the middle of the
Okay.
night. It
Yes.
was the middle of the night, so it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and in Chicago or other places I visited, there are no people at 2 o'clock in the morning. But I just remember getting off the plane and going through immigration and getting my luggage and then opening the doors, and there were people everywhere in the airport. It was just so crowded. I thought, how could there be this many people? It's 2 o'clock in the morning. And
Yes.
Sarah says, "What about
Mm.
Egypt?" No, I've always wanted to visit Egypt, but I haven't been there. But after visiting India several times, I don't know if I would be out of my depth in Egypt. I think I could handle it, but maybe
Okay.
not. I don't know.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
But it means I don't have the skills that I need. I can't manage it. I can't
Yeah.
manage the situation. So what does this mean? When I
Okay.
started writing, maybe I thought, "Oh, it's a good idea to write a book. I'm going to write a book." But after I started writing it,
But
what did I realize?
I realized it was difficult to
Hmm.
is required a skill to handle.
Yeah, let's see. He knows a lot about computers and the internet,
Uh,
but when he started making a website, he soon realized he was out of his depth. What does that mean?
yeah. Okay. So firstly, uh, know that I I have a lot of knowledge about computer,
Hmm. So
but when he started
yeah, so
to
maybe
make a
he's thinking,
website,
"Oh, it's
yeah,
easy to make a website. It's no big deal. I know a lot about computers." But then what happened when he made a website, Pachu, or tried?
okay, so he can so he hasn't doesn't have required a skill to make website.
That's right.
Yeah.
Suddenly he realized he can't manage it. It's too much. Does that make sense? Do you understand what that's a pretty common expression, actually.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
So as some people say that the singing is easy
Mhm.
or yeah, playing guitar is easy, but when people go actually and do the same thing, then they realize that oh, it is a big, because it is
Yeah.
requires a lot of skills, a lot of hard works.
Hmm. So
So it
that's
is
what
yeah,
that's what people think. Oh, that looks easy. That's no problem. But then when it suddenly happens, they think, "Oh my gosh, how can you do that? That seems impossible. I thought I was so smart, but I can't do it." Does that make
yes,
sense?
yeah, yes, sir, yes.
Okay. So what does this sentence mean? I'm out of my depth in this debate.
So I have no skill to handle this debate,
Yeah, but also maybe I thought I could, but I can't.
but yes, I
Does that make
thought I
sense?
could, but I cannot. Yes,
What do you suppose are the
yes, sir.
important words in that phrase?
So as a out,
Okay.
my depth,
Okay.
out, depth, and debate. Yeah.
Okay. How many syllables in debate?
Okay, it's a debate. Is it
Debate.
two?
Debate. Okay. And which syllable has
D,
all of
d,
the sound?
the debate. Debate.
Uh,
D,
listen again. Debate. Debate. Debate.
debate.
So is it
Okay, so
debate
bit.
or debate?
Okay, bit. Is it,
Bait.
is it,
Great. It's the same sound. Great.
yeah,
Bait.
great, debate.
Now, Pacho, I saw
Debate.
earlier in the Discord that you were talking about when a sound is reduced, you have to use the schwa sound. So is it debate or is it debate? Debate.
Debate. Is it? So
Is-
yeah. So I think the is not the is a D. Yeah.
Well, but you were just writing in the Discord. I saw you the other day. You were talking about when a sound is reduced, when it's not important, it often becomes a schwa sound. And this is one of those cases. Now, you can say debate if you want, but most people will say duh, debate, duh. They'll make the schwa sound. Debate.
Okay, sir. Okay. Yes. Okay. Debate. Okay. Got it. Yeah. Okay. Thank
How
you.
would you say out plus of plus my?
So is it out of my out of my
Out of my, out of my, out of my,
out out of my out of my
out of my depth.
out of my depth.
Can you say thin, thin, thin,
Ten,
thin, depth,
ten,
depth in, depth in,
depth in,
depth in this, depth in this,
depth in this,
depth in
depth
this
in this,
debate, depth in this debate,
depth in this debate.
debate, like great, two sounds, a.
Okay. Debate.
That's better, yes. I'm out of my depth in this debate.
I'm out of my depth in this debate.
Okay. Let's see, let's try another one. How would you say you can't handle this topic? Can you use out of depth and change this sentence? You can't handle this topic.
So I am out of depth.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. Okay. So you can out of your depth
Well,
in this topic.
yeah, so let's just use out of depth. Don't think about the word can. Let's just try out of
Okay.
depth.
So you are out of depth.
Mm-hmm.
So you are out of depth in this topic.
That's right. And Sarah got it too in the comments. Sarah said, "You're out of depth in this comment," and you're right. You are out of depth in this topic. That means you can't handle it. You don't have enough information. Right? Is that
Yes.
fair?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah.
All right. And what are can you say that phrase again? Let's try to concentrate on the important sounds when you say it.
Okay. So you are out of depth in this topic.
Okay. How would you make a why question with that sentence?
So why are you out of depth in this topic?
Why are you out of depth in this topic? And what could be the reason? What reason could we come up with in that to answer that question?
yeah, the topic is hard. Yeah, topic is
Complicated, maybe?
very scientific,
Scientific?
complicated, maybe.
Okay. So tell me, what is your
Yes.
answer then? Why are you out of depth in this topic? I am because.
So I am out of I am out of depth in this topic because it is completely scientific.
Okay. And then we have scientific. Scientific. How many syllables in that word?
The scientific three scientific
Four. I cut four. Scientific.
four scientific. Okay. Scientific. Yeah.
Okay. Now, if I say that word, just try to. Which syllable has all of the focus? Scientific. Scientific.
Scientific.
Like this? Scientific. Scientific. Is that right? Scientific.
No, it is
Scientific.
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 It is scientific.
Scientific.
It's the first.
So,
Yeah.
scientific. Scientific. Is that right? Scientific. Scientific. Scientific.
Scientific.
T. It's T. Scientific. Do you hear it? Scientific. It's a little confusing because a lot of times when you have a word with 3 or 4 syllables or more, there could be more than one accent. Okay. And
Yeah.
but still one sound is going to be louder than all of the other. Or one sound is going to be bigger than all of the other. So psi does have some power to it, but not as powerful as t. Scientific. Scientific.
Scientific.
You hear it?
Scientific. Yes.
Okay.
Scientific.
So I'm out of depth. I'm out of my depth. Let's put a possessive here. I'm out of my depth, or you are out of your depth. We should use the possessive here. You're out of your depth in this topic because it is very scientific.
Okay. So I am out of depth in this topic because it is very scientific.
Yeah, you should put a possessive here. I'm out of my depth. My depth.
Okay. So I'm out of my depth in this topic because it is very scientific.
That's right. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's where we'll finish for today. So I think the next time
Thank you, sir.
we'll be able to do Sherlock is, let me see. Let me just make sure. I guess that would be on Thursday. Thursday morning will be the next time that we can do this. Okay. So thank you, everybody, for participating. Thank you for your questions. Thank you, Pachu, for volunteering. And I will see you on Thursday, okay? If not before.
Okay.
All right. So have a good day, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.